Well, we want to be aggressive with our defense. I really don't have any illusion that we're going to be able to make them turn the ball over more than they normally do because they're just so well coached and disciplined. I think a big part of this game is patience on defense. I think a lot of times in basketball you associate patience with offense, but you also got to be a patient defense. You know, our guys are going to play hard. They're going to be ready. They're going to want to win. But sometimes you can't try too hard on defense. So bottom line, we're about to play against a really well-coached, grinded-out kind of team. K-State can play different ways. I mean, they're really good in transition because they have about 4 guys on the floor at all times that can handle the ball and start their break. Got multiple three-point shooters and got several playmakers. But they're also disciplined enough where they can grind it out in the half court. This will be a team you see this year that will win games in the 90s and 100s, which they have. Then they can also win a game in the 50s if they have to. So we're just going to have to be really solid and be at our best.
I know you mentioned it before, but rebounding seems to be a key factor for you all, at least once Big 12 play started. I guess how have you kind of emphasized that to your players, and how important has it been in the last couple games where you win that rebounding battle, and it seems like the toughness really kind of came out of your team?
Yeah, there's a relationship between rebounding and winning in the Big 12 Conference. We spent a lot of time this offseason trying to get our team better. Recruiting, player development, preparation, attitude, conditioning, weight room, nutrition, discipline. And also in that list would be rebounding. We know we had to become a better rebounding team. It's early in the year. We really haven't done anything yet, but we're a work in progress. But we do try to rebound the ball better. I think we've out-rebounded the opponents 2 times so far in the Big 12. We've won 2 games, so that's a trend.
K-State, those guys are obviously pretty super balanced with the top end of their scoring with those top 4 guys, I think from 12 to 15 points. What kind of what kind of challenges does that present to you guys?
Very challenging. I would like to think that people think it's a challenge when they play against us because, you know, we got a lot of players. We use our bench. It's a similar type team. They got 4 guys in double figures, really good players. All those guys are capable. Then their second-tier guys are really good. And then consistent with Coach Weber's whole career, those guys will get better over the course of the season. So their 6th, 7th, 8th guys are just going to become better. And then one day we'll be sitting up here talking about those guys being the stars. So it's a challenging thing to play against Coach Weber's teams because they never beat themselves. They're well coached. They play together. And then they got some really good players this year.
Coach, you mentioned how obviously there's been 2 really good wins to start off conference play with Baylor and Kansas, but you mentioned that you don't think overconfidence will be an issue for this team. Is that something you guys have really focused on, or why do you think that?
My belief in that comes from our players and these 5 seniors, understanding that we really haven't done anything yet, understanding we're playing another NCAA tournament team. I mean, if you can't get up to play Baylor, you're not a competitor. They've got a program that goes every year. Kansas, one of the best teams in the country. And then here we go with K-State. This is a team that went to the tournament last year. It's a team that has a really good coach and great players. So my belief that we'll never overlook anybody in this league. We're just not deserving to even be in that position. We haven't done anything yet. I'm proud of our guys, proud of our fan base. But, I mean, let's keep it real here. It's January. Let's be in the fight in February, then we can talk about those things. So. And then, too, I have a lot of confidence in our coaching staff and myself, ultimately, that, we'll have the team ready to play. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to win this game. It's going to be tough, but we're not going to beat ourselves. We'll be ready to play. We have too much respect for K-State.
Coach, during the TV broadcast, they just talked about the level of focus and intentionality that you guys had in your shoot-around. Can you just kind of speak to the game day mentality that this team brings? Obviously, energy and focus is something that's intrinsic, and it has to be brought by the players every day.
Yeah, it's just a focal point of what we do. It's the way I was brought up with Coach Penders and Coach Casper and Shannon Hayes and Vic Trilly, all the guys that I worked for, and then ultimately my experience with Coach Knight and Pat. It's respecting the opponent and it's trying to be prepared, and there's not anybody in the country right now that doesn't want to win their next game. You couldn't find one player or one coach or one SID that doesn't want to win. But then what separates those guys and the guys that really maybe can get it done are the guys that understand you got to prepare to win. You got to want to prepare to win. So with us, we're going to take advantage all the way up until tip-off. So whether it's a shoot-around or a practice or even a timeout, it's more time to prepare for the next situation. So I would agree with that. I think our players embrace preparation this year.
Coach, talk about Xavier Snead and how he has become such a important asset to the K-State program.
Yeah, some of his teammates get a lot of credit, which they should, but I would put him in that same category. He's playing himself into having an all-conference type season. He's a guy that plays multiple positions, the kind of player that we love here at Tech, guys that can play the forward and the guard. And then his three-point shooting is just dead on. He's a guy you can't leave open. So I've always had a lot of respect for him on the defensive end too, how hard he plays. I don't know him. I've just shaken his hand a couple times, but he appears to be, the kind of player that I love to coach.
Coach, can you talk about the free throws for your team? Looks like they've improved. Is there something different in practice, or is it just that they're falling down for you?
No, it's just process. All that evens out. I think I said it before. We had the one game where we didn't make free throws, and everybody's panicking. I'm getting texts and emails from people I haven't heard from for years about holding your elbow and, a bunch of mojo type stuff. But I think I told you all that day it'd balance out. We're going to win some games with free throws, and sometimes you come up short because of free throws. But I think in those moments you don't earn the right to make that free throw because you really want to make it. You earn that right in the summers and in the mornings and at night and in practice and just paying the price. So we shoot as many free throws as anybody in college basketball on a daily basis. And so I have a lot of confidence when our guys get to the free throw line.
Could you give us an update on Zach and how he's feeling?
Yeah, I think we're going in the right direction. It's still going to be kind of a game day type deal. We're hoping to get him to practice this week, but it's getting a lot better. But it's not. I don't know how fast it's going, but give Chris Williams, our trainer, a lot of credit. Just basically working tirelessly. Him and Zach are like besties now, man. They play PlayStation and work on his ankle every hour. I'm going to go to that store in the mall, Claire's. They got the little necklaces where half of it's bestie, I'm going to get Zach and Chris a couple of those chains. Probably an NCAA rule to do that, so I'll encourage them to spend their own money to do that.
Just going back to Justin, Coach, I know you mentioned his defense is really what you're happy about, but I guess in terms of just seeing the aggressiveness and seeing him kind of really flourish on offense, I guess what was that like to kind of see him in that mode where you knew when he was aggressive he'd be good?
Yeah, Justin's a really good player, but he's the ultimate team guy. He does what it takes to win. Justin Gray's going to get paid a lot of money to play basketball, and I'm sure on some of his pro jobs he'll be asked to score the ball a lot more than we ask him or need him to here. But he's always ready when need be. So in that Kansas game, some of those possessions got to mid to late clock, and that's where Justin gets really aggressive. And I give his teammates a lot of credit for screening and passing to him. But I've always thought he's a great scorer. He's just doing what needs to be done each game. Like, Justin's going to have some 20-point games in this league. There's no doubt about it.
And I didn't get to ask you after Kansas, but did you kind of feel like that was Norris's best effort, especially considering what happened last year where he was just trying to get back? Do you kind of feel like that's where you can kind of see him?
Yeah, I agree with that, but I just think he can get so much better too. It's not that I'm getting greedy, but I just think he's got such a ceiling to get better. He's a couple of those big rebounds he got around the basket. I think he can finish. I think he can pass the ball better. But what I love about Norris is just his attitude and how coachable he is. In that Baylor game, I really challenged him and got on him in a way that only some players can handle. And then the next day, I didn't let it go. I really stayed after Norris. And he played good against Baylor. Really good. But there's just a couple plays where I didn't think he had the type of enthusiasm and energy and just outwardly toughness that he has and our team has to have. It's not about Norris being enthusiastic and vocal for Norris, because I know Norris is ready to play. It's about our other players and our staff needing to see Norris in those moments. He's our emotional leader. He's one of the toughest guys in our program, pound for pound. So I thought at the Kansas game he competed, and he played well, but I think he can play even better.
And I guess just in those big key moments, I know you kind of mentioned it before that the freshmen aren't freshmen now. Do you kind of feel like they really grew up in Kansas, especially with Morrow kind of making that three and just kind of making the pass to Tommy underneath? I guess did you kind of feel like Jared and all them either kind of showed their veteran leadership at that point or their poise?
Yeah, but I would say that just because that was their first Big 12 road game. It wasn't just Kansas. If those guys would have made those plays in any of the 9 other Big 12 arenas, I'd say the same thing. So, it was a big day for us just for those guys to play well on the road. And this will be the next step. Can you validate a win by protecting your home floor against a team that's really good? I mean, guys, K-State's won 3 road games: Washington State, Vandy, and Iowa State. They're really good. I mean, their coach, he plays in the national championship game when he's the head coach at Illinois. He's going to get on a run at K-State maybe this year. He's going to get another team. If Bruce Weber gets another team to the Final Four, he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. That's how good a coach this guy is. And so I think in our league with all the great players and great coaches, people don't talk about K-State and Coach Weber enough. But those of us that know basketball, like you, Carlos, you understand what we're getting into. This guy he's one of the best coaches in our game, and he has really good players. And so we're going to have to play awful well to win this game on Saturday. We'll have to play one of our best games of the year to protect our home court.
Coach, talk about how every time that Kansas made a run, you were able to stop and then make a counter run yourself. What is it about this team that is different than ones that you've seen in the past, where this team has the ability to believe in itself, to make those counter runs, and to hold a team, especially in their home floor?
Well, basketball is a game of runs, and another thing, you got to be a little bit fortunate. A lot of times in those runs, the run was kind of killed because maybe Kansas missed an open shot or something. So, you got to understand that we had some really fortunate things happen in that game too, and I think our players understand that. But you also got to be able to make plays. You try to play the game a certain way. You follow the scouting report. You do the things that you need to do. But then you also got to make some plays. You got to go get an offensive rebound putback. But I don't know if that's a part of the game plan. You got to pop out and hit a couple threes in a row. You have to make some plays. And I think that's where the whole deal, victory favors the team that's more aggressive. And I think we've done that for the most part this year. Even in our loss against Seton Hall, I thought we played hard. I thought we played aggressive. We just didn't make enough plays. And so ultimately in the Big 12, these seasons come down to 4 or 5 pivotal games, 5, 6 possessions. And so I think, and you can't always hope that things go your way, but what I think we are trying to control this year is we want to be the more aggressive team. So even when we don't quite get it done and we run out of time, we just want to be able to say, hey, we were aggressive. It just wasn't our day.
We'll go to Ben in the back left there, Coach.
I guess kind of bouncing off of that, what would you attribute? It seemed like there was a number of players kind of making those kind of plays to either build on the run or to kind of keep the flow going in your direction, whether it be Morrow hitting the 3, Keenan Evans with the floater, even though he hadn't been shooting that well up to that point. What would you kind of attribute to the players, the ability for nearly everyone to be able to make a play instead of it just being, a couple guys?
Well, I'd contribute that to balance, the identity of our teams. We have different guys that are willing and ready and wanting to step up in those moments. And ultimately, that's how you win a Big 12 game. You can win a non-conference game early because Justin Gray and Culver played great. And maybe it wasn't Keenan and Zach's night. You can't do that in this league. Like, if you're going to win a game in this league, you have to have your best players show up. Everybody has to have a good game. Last game, Naeem, statistically, I think he was 1 for 8. But 6 of those 8 shots were good shots that we all believe in. But he also impacts the game with 4 or 5 assists and a couple defensive deflections. So Naeem, that man, I looked like he played great on paper, but he played great and he made some plays for us to win the game. So ultimately, that's what this level is all about. Every guy on your roster has to contribute. You have to bring something to the game, or you just can't get it done. And so it'll be just like that on Saturday. Everybody on our roster will have to contribute. We'll have to have guys play great games to have a chance to beat K-State.
We'll wrap it up with Ryan back there.
Coach, you mentioned protecting home court and everything. Is it good that you get to come home immediately and use that momentum from the Kansas game and get that raucous environment so quickly and get a home game with Kansas State?
It just works out that way. You either play at home or on the road in this league. And so, of course, everybody likes to play at home because you want to play in front of your fan base. But really, especially this year, there appears to be no real advantage playing at home. There's actually an advantage playing on the road. Like, that first stat was crazy, like 8 out of 9. I just can't even wrap my mind around that. But then when you think about it, it just comes back to how good the teams are and the players and coaches. And so, do I like to play at home? Yes. But do I think it's an advantage? Just a little bit if need be. But with our fans in attendance, that's where the advantage can become consistent over time as we build the program. So, you know, we're asking for help again. Every time I'm in front of you guys, I'm asking for something, just like any other coach. But, you know, we'd like to have a great home crowd on Saturday. I think our players are deserving for people to come out and see them play. The message is always, students, please come to the game. We haven't started classes yet, but we still got enough students kind of in town or around the area. Make sure you understand your tickets are still free with your ID and all that, even though school isn't in session. Come to the game. With our season ticket holders, you know, please come. If you can't, take that little extra effort and put somebody in the seats. That's huge. And then just anybody that hasn't seen our team play yet, we'd hope that you'd want to come to the game. But we're hoping for a great crowd on Saturday.